Welcome to the Excellence in Enterprise podcast, where I reach out to people I do not know, engage with friends, all for the purpose of learning about them, learning about what they care about, why they care about what they're doing, what they're engaged with from across multiple different industries and multiple different vantage points and viewpoints, all for the purpose of increasing my personal knowledge and kind of thinking outside the box when it comes to my work, my professional career. I want to draw from those sources, and I thought you might be interested in hearing as well. So I hope you will join me on this journey. You can find me on YouTube, on Spotify, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'd love to engage with you, and I hope you enjoy this podcast interview engagement journey with me. So for those of you who don't know, which is, I don't know exactly how many listeners I have, but seeing as I have a large family, it's probably about half of you. This is Cambria Jacobson, my younger sister, one of my younger sisters. She lives in Bend, Oregon, and which I find annoying because on Instagram, she's always tagging the cool places she's hanging out and ruining the beautiful Pacific Northwest by encouraging people to move there, instead of keeping it rare like when I was a child. And so anyway, she works in kind of social and digital marketing, and she does like event planning and social media posting and strategy and branding and all that kind of stuff for a variety of different small to medium sized businesses. She's worked for some larger individuals before, and you can go check out her Instagram, and I'll have her socials and everything obviously down below in the description and everywhere else, and if you want to check out and see what some of those are. So the reason we're doing this podcast is actually a last minute recording, but the reason we're doing it is twofold. One is I wanted to do one, and two is because yesterday we have this weekly we try and make it as weekly as possible, conversation where we'll jump on a Zoom for about an hour or so, and we have a book that we read together, and then we'll talk about it and kind of catch up on other life things on a weekly basis. And so that was yesterday, and we ended up having what I thought is at least an interesting, and the reason I think it's interesting is because I think it's important, conversation about both males and females. It was mostly about females because I was asking most of the questions, but kind of asking about confidence in yourself and discussing confidence in yourself and how to, I don't know, how one can and should be thinking about that. And I'll give a little background, but before I do that, Cambria, is there anything off the top of mind that you wanted to say or that I left out that you feel like the great and mighty masses of this podcast ought to know?
No, I think you pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here.
Yes. You can correct me later. No.
I feel like I can't believe you didn't mention him.
Yeah. It's like, oh, messed up again. So, all right. So we are currently reading Only Cry for the Living, Memos from Inside the ISIS Battlefield, written by Hollis McKay. And she is a journalist, and she was in Iraq during kind of the whole 2014, 15, 16, 17 kind of rise of ISIS and through that whole time period. And she's writing about a lot of the stories and the people that she ran into and the things that she saw. And so it's a very deep, impactful book. It's very sobering, and there's at least so far, we're only a little ways in, but there's a lot of trauma, which one is of course to expect, but it can be a lot when that's at least so far the majority of what the book is covering. And as we were discussing it, we were talking about one of the reasons it's good to read about things that are traumatic that you might not necessarily be able to do anything about, which is what can make it hard. It becomes so much when you're reading it, the emotional response becomes so much, you kind of end up having to choose, to kind of shut off your emotional response, because it's like, I can't do anything about this. Like, what am I supposed to do? And as we were discussing that, one of the points that, or at least that I brought up, was that I think that's why you want to balance what you're reading and what you're taking in with both kind of the positive and encouragement side of things, but then also the more grounding and sober types of things. And so, for instance, our previous book was a little bit more lighthearted and a little bit more, or at least heartwarming, talking about the friendship between C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. And that was an awesome book. That was really good. And now we're engaging this, like, deeper, more sobering content. And that got me thinking. So now we're getting into the topic of discussion, because as we were talking about that, it triggered something that happened in my mind 2 or 3 days ago. And I was on Instagram and I came across a gal's Instagram, and I follow her, or did follow her. I'm always rotating, like, who I'm following and what I'm paying attention to. But I really support what she's doing, what she stands for. And I was a fan of what she was up to. And she did this post, uh, basically talking about how she struggles with getting on Instagram or getting online, and kind of feeling like there's an issue with comparison, and comparing herself to girls, and feeling like she's not skinny enough, she's not fit enough, she's not, whatever, the whole list of things. And it honestly, it bothered me a lot, because she, at least from my perspective, all right, everybody has different types and different points of view, of course, but at least generally speaking, at least relative to my perspective, she's very attractive. She is very thin, which is one of the things she was talking about. She's cute, like, she's got nice, cute outfits, and that's most of what she posts in terms of the pictures, and her content and captions are good and things like that. And so it really bothered me, because if someone who, is an influencer, who is attractive and does work out, does take care of herself, et cetera, is struggling with comparison of not being skinny and all this other stuff. To me, it made me mad a little bit, because I was like, if that's what you're struggling with, then what the heck like, how can I help you with that? Right there, I don't see how there's a solution to that. And so I expressed this frustration to Cambria on our call yesterday. And so anyway, so we'll get back. We're gonna try and recreate that conversation, because I thought it was at least helpful and interesting and enlightening, and hopefully the rest of you all can feel the same way. So Cambria, when now it's your turn. When I mentioned that, when I mentioned that, what was the first thing that came to your mind when I expressed and I'm still trying to figure out how to properly word my frustration, but at least when I expressed it, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
Well, I guess I had a couple thoughts right off the bat. An aspect of that I appreciate you brought up was, hey, as Christ followers, aren't we supposed to be content with the image we have? We are supposed to be bearing his image more or less, and whether that's in a spiritual sense, but I think that kind of, you pointed out that kind of flows into your perspective of self. So I appreciated you also mentioned that aspect of it, but also as a woman, I'm so accustomed to hearing that it's every day. I don't know a single woman who doesn't struggle with some kind of mild to severe insecurity, body image dysmorphia across the board. It doesn't matter how beautiful, how fit, how healthy you are, how skinny you are, you struggle with it to some extent or other. So when you said, oh yeah, she's a great influencer, she is fit, she's healthy, she's got gorgeous fashion sense, she's absolutely beautiful, just naturally a beautiful human being, even by society standards, impossible standards. It's no surprise that, yeah, she would make a post and make it public that, hey, I've been struggling with these insecurities.
Okay.
Because it is a pretty big issue for every woman.
Okay.
And I'm speaking from the women's perspective. I'm sure men as well struggle with insecurities. So
What?
don't want to make that sound too
no.
blanket.
Men are tough.
No insecurities.
Yeah, exactly. No, so what upset me about it was it it made me feel like, if someone who is all of these great things is feeling the exact opposite of those great things, then what in the world can I feel like I can't help you with that. Because the truth is, that you are not those things, right? Or and that in that you are attractive, blah 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 blah. You know, taking care of yourself, whatever that means, right? For different body types and all that kind of thing. Um, you know, but you don't feel that way. How am I supposed to help you feel something that is, you know, factually true? And like, what can, like, as a guy, you know, and if I was interacting with any girl, I don't interact with this girl, but I'm saying interacting with any girl, like, you know, it's for me, it felt like you're setting the bar, the struggle bar, like an inch off the ground. It's like you're struggling with the things that you literally don't have a problem with. And if that's what you're already struggling with, then how the heck are you supposed to, you know, help other people or better yourself in the ways that maybe you could actually improve, you know, in whatever ways that might be to you personally, whether it's in, you know, physical or, you know, emotional or mental or whatever. Um, so I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting because our conversation ended up pouring into another conversation I had later that same day with a friend of mine. And as we were talking about the concept of beauty and attractiveness and why do women feel this way, is it just society? Is it just media? Because I think we point a lot to media and social media, and yet there's a lot more available photoshopped images because we all know it's not real. We all know it's not real, but it doesn't matter if you know it's not real, it still looks really great. And almost looking really great on the internet has become a little bit more important even than looking that way in real life. So I think media's made it maybe more apparent of a problem, but I think the problem's been around for a while. So I don't think it's fair to blame it on media. Women have been insecure since the beginning of time. So the more we talked about it, the more it kind of came to both of our attention that more or less beauty has begun kind of evolved into a commodity of sorts. And you can argue that and go like, oh, I treat everyone all the same. But as a woman, you know you get treated. You feel yourself get treated if you're dressed cuter, if you're more attractive, depending on the environment. It doesn't need you don't need to be, you know, out at a bar at midnight to notice, oh, guys treat me a lot better. Even women treat me a lot better. The more attractive I am, the more put together I am. You're given more attention, you're given more time, you're given more consideration. So you begin to view your beauty as a commodity. And then on top of the comparison game you play, then it feels like an asset you need to have. Because we were both talking, and something she brought up that I really appreciated. She said, yeah, I used to be insecure in XYZ ways. And then someone in my life began to give me compliments for the first time. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I realized it didn't get me what I wanted, which was to be in a relationship with this person. It didn't matter that he thought I was beautiful if he didn't want to be with me. And then my beauty in that sense lost its value. And I didn't care if he thought I was beautiful. I wanted him to value me as a person. So women, I think, view their beauty as an asset to get what they want, which is not just necessarily attention, but value. Does that make sense? You're kind of replacing that human relationship value, or hey, I value you as a person, with this temporary beauty and physical looks statistic in between the two of them.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. Um, and I guess to a point that I at least feel like one should consider is, you know, that's a great example with this friend of yours who, even when she got what
Mhm.
she, you know, in theory thought she wanted, right, it didn't work out. And I think what obviously, I guess I should preface everything that we've ever said about the topic with, like, obviously I think men should be gentlemen and should be honoring ladies appropriately and vice versa. So but that being said, is on some level or another, if you are predicating your, you know, your attitude, your spirit, you know, your energy, whatever various form it takes on for you, if you're predicating that on whether or not someone thinks you're attractive or someone else thinks you're attractive, or on something on Instagram or whatever, then
Mhm.
you are aligning yourself with something that you don't control. And I think that's one of the reasons it bothers me,
Mhm.
is you're essentially giving power to this external entity instead of taking that and making it yours. And I'm not saying this is easy, and it's not like a constant battle. Like, you know, I struggle with maybe varying forms of it at, you know, I don't know, like at work. It's like if I don't get, you know, praise for doing well on a good job, it's like that's, you know, I find that, annoying, and like, oh man, or something along those lines, right? So I'm not saying there aren't various iterations of it, in different factors and forms of life, but when it comes, like, if you're giving that entity, that external entity, that power, instead of taking it and making it your own, where you're assessing yourself based on the things that you have chosen to care about and you've chosen to identify as your own priorities, why, is that unfair? Is that just like an unrealistic or too cut and dried approach?
I think if all women did that, then yes, there would be a massive change. I think the odds of all women doing that are next to nothing. But I think if, as a woman, again, I'm speaking specifically to the women, not to discount the men that do also struggle with insecurity. But I think, yes, as a woman, if you're realigning yourself and going like, I don't care what other people think. I know I'm not enough, and that's okay. I'm not trying to be enough for everyone. I am happy with what's made me a unique individual. I'm happy with the gifts God has blessed me with the physical attributes that God has blessed me with. Because that's another thing that was brought up in the discussion with a friend. The point that God created everyone. I mean, you look at nature, everything is so snowflakes, so individual, so beautifully crafted, so unique, so full of variation. And I think humans are that way as well. But instead, there's almost this condition to be all similar. And because we can't all be the similar, same single line type of creation, I think to a certain extent we are going against our own very own nature. And that's part of the reason where there's that insecurity and almost that conflict that comes from. And there's a lot of societal cliches as well, as far as what a guy should look like with what girl should look like. For instance, if a guy is taller than a woman in a relationship, yeah, some people are totally fine with that. A lot of people are like, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit weird. Whether or not you express that opinion, most people won't express that opinion, but a lot of people will have that opinion, especially if the girl's a lot taller than the guy. Why do we have that reaction? Why is that a societal need that, hey, you should be with someone who's taller than you? And that, of course, go without going into too much detail. Obviously, that goes into a lot of different other variations, but it's that same almost pushback against, okay, there's this variation, there's something a little bit different, which I think also adds another layer to all of us. Yeah, basically almost pushing back against our the way we were created to be, by pushing back against what makes us unique and what makes us special and individual.
Yeah, no, that part makes sense. Why do you think that it's so hard to kind of, I don't know, take that power, take that control? Because to me, it's like, if you don't do that, and again, this is just me expressing frustration from maybe more of an external point of view, or maybe also like this. I mean, I believe that the principle can be applied to any individual, but if if those are the sorts of things that you're struggling with, allowing yourself to struggle with, or choosing to think about, or whatever, that process is like for you, then at least in my mind, you're setting yourself up to be nonstop miserable. And like,
Hmm.
why would you choose to live like that?
And it is, when you're living that, it is miserable. Absolutely. It is miserable when you wake up every day and you go, oh, I don't measure up, or I'm not enough, or I'm never going to be those things. Yeah, absolutely. There's always this voice in the back of your head that goes, could do better. And obviously, there's things you're insecure about that you can't change or you can't do something about. But I think there's a lot of them that you can do something about. And I think, as far as being attractive to other people goes, I think a lot of that gets put down to confidence. And you don't necessarily need to be a size. I'm not even going to say a size, but you don't have to be the perfect size to be attractive to other people. I've seen my friends go from being like, to when they're really confident, like absolutely gorgeous, incredible people. But when they're feeling insecure, you can see it. And then when they're confident, they don't have to change anything about themselves except their confidence. And there's such a, that's very empowering, but that's a choice the individual has to make. And obviously, if that's based on other people's reaction towards you, it's going to make you feel even more insecure, because eventually you're not going to get that reaction from other people. And that will send you spiraling. So,
Do you
of
think that
course.
do you think that choice is hard to make? Well, I mean, I believe it.
I
I
think if
say
you see it
this
as a
because of,
choice,
yes, it is a choice. It is a choice, I think.
I think, again, okay, so I agree with you in that it is a choice. However, I do want to put the disclaimers, and yes, you can still tell as a woman that you get treated better when you are more attractive. So there are worldly consequences that I don't think are going to change.
Of course
but
not.
hopefully your confidence isn't built on those worldly consequences. But yes, I think if you see it as a one-time choice, yes, it's very difficult. If you see it as an everyday, I'm going to stop picking apart the things that I can't change or that I don't like, and I'm going to start celebrating and pressing into the sides of me that I do like. And if I don't have any right now, I'm going to look into that and I'm going to create some. I'm going to find some. And I mean some outside physical attributes as well. Because I think when we put all the emphasis on how you appear physically, again, you could be the most beautiful woman in the world and have terrible days. But if you have hobbies you're really interested in, if you've got relationships you're really invested and cared for within, I think that makes a massive difference in your confidence and by effect, your attractiveness, your beauty, things that make you an interesting person. I think I this is a really cliche, this is a really cliche example, but I look at a woman like Amal Clooney. I believe they are actually married. Like gorgeous, classy, very intelligent woman. But what I like, I mean, and I'm sure she is not a perfect person, so it's not like I know her personally, but I love seeing them together. I loved watching that relationship to a certain extent because I thought there was just such a Audrey Hepburn's another great example. Yes, she's very beautiful, but her story, what she's been through, what she did with her life, beyond just coming, showing up, being like, I'm a cute little actress. I think that's what's really powerful, moving, and what makes her a really timeless, classic, attractive person. So I think you can also improve your looks by improving your personality, improving your interests. Be so excited about how interesting of a person you are that you don't care if someone doesn't find you attractive because you have all these other things in your life. You go, hey, I'm confident about this. Who I am as a person is incredible. It doesn't matter that you don't find me attractive because that's the least interesting thing about me. And it's okay if you don't have value in that. I don't need you to have value in that because I have value in these other things.
Yeah, it makes sense. I hear that. One of the things that actually when we were first discussing this yesterday was, and towards the beginning of it, I asked about a particular senior individual that we knew who's an awesome go-getter person, and
Mhm.
I was like, well, do you really think that she struggles with insecurities? And you're like, yeah, totally, I've actually heard her make comments or whatever. And I was like, oh well, I guess I was wrong, or would have gotten that one
Mhm.
wrong on the multiple choice exam. And the further we talked about it, and you were saying that it was disappointing for you or to you to have that kind of to discover that a role model, at least of sorts, kind of was kind of had these negative
Mhm.
perceptions or perspectives. And I think the question that I ended up asking you towards the end, and as we were continuing to discuss it, was, well, then like what's the matter with you choosing to be that role model for your own life, and then for the people eventually that you come into contact with and or will be a senior role model for eventually. um, so not for a long time. You're still very young, you know.
I mean, so I have white hair, but
um, so anyway, so yeah, so I, do you have any thoughts about that? You know, and I don't know if that's a helpful perspective to have, where it's you know what, I don't see any role models around me
Mhm.
necessarily, whoever me is, right? But you know what, I'm going to choose to be this kind of person, A, because that's the kind of person that I want to be, B, because I believe those sorts of people can and should and do exist, and I know that because that's who I am, so I'm at least one. um is that like a, I don't know, maybe that's too visionary, or you know I don't know, too visionary of a way of looking at it, but is that, I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that part?
No, I think if you can, if at all possible, move towards the healthy side of body image and placing your value in more important things, yeah, that is absolutely really inspiring. The same way in that it's, I guess, almost in a backward sort of way, it's inspiring to me when I see my friends who are skinnier and healthier and, in my opinion, more beautiful than I am talk about their insecurities. It makes me go, hey, hold up. If I can be confident looking like this, you can be confident looking like that. So where's the missing link? Um, and I think, yeah, I think it is very contagious when you're around someone who rocks who they are physically, since we are talking about, again, physical things. But also, I just, to circle back, it's really not all about physical looks. If all you're trying to do is find confidence in how you look physically, odds are that's something you've placed at the top of the list for confidence. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. Because until you change that, until your confidence is in something else, you're always going to be disappointed. I remember I was talking to someone on a phone a couple of years ago, someone who kind of a mutual friend was trying to set us up. And I realized a phone call or two in, I wasn't interested for some semi-serious concerns. So I told him, I was trying to be very nice, but hey, I'd love to be your friend if you want to be friends, but right now I don't see this going anywhere. And I'll never forget what he said, because it's hilarious and could have really hurt my confidence at the time, because I was not dating a lot and it was someone who was interested, it was exciting. I remember because he goes, okay, well, call me in a few years when you're alone, 40 with a bunch of cats. And just really offensive, because obviously it'd be with a bunch of dogs, but but went from really nice, interested to completely. And I still think that's hilarious. And if my confidence was built on that guy approving of who I was and asserting who I was and affirming who I was and going, yeah, you're a really great human being, that would have really been hard to hear. But now I'm like, no, I mean, like the last year or so, I picked up dirt biking. I'm working on other hobbies and things that I'm interested in, so that, hey, even if I die alone at 40 or with 40 cats, I can't remember if it was at 40 or if I had 40 cats in this fake scenario, I don't care, because I have all these other things that add meaning and interest and value to my life that are so much more important than physical looks.
It sounds like you're just trying to die before you reach 40.
Yeah, apparently. Well, I keep writing halfway there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like, and that's the kind of thing, like, maybe I could speak to like that, that sort of guy. It's like,
Yeah, can you apologize for me?
yeah. I'm sorry that a loser exists somewhere in the world. Yeah, it's just like,
Thank you.
like pathetic people are going to be pathetic. And like, obviously that's, maybe he was hurt because he was interested or whatever reason, right? That's not an excuse to then hurt people. Like, one of our dad's most, one of many awesome sayings is that hurting people hurt people, right? And at some point you have to choose not to be the person that's hurting, because the domino effect has to stop with you. And so, regardless of why he was acting out, it's like, you're going to run into people that act out, and you're going to, because the world is full of people who are not of the exact same, worldview, personality, body type, you name it. The world is full of people that are not that. And so you're going to run into that at all points in your life.
Mm.
And and that goes back to like giving them power. Like, don't give a person who was at the very least immature and silly any power. And it's like, and no external person can take, can step between that power and you, right? It's like, you have to choose to say no to that. You have to choose to reject, this person's influence, or that guy's influence, that girl's influence. Like, that part still has to, and that's where it goes down to like the choice part is like, I can, in our relationship, haven't really had to do this, too much. But it's like, I can only say like, no, that dude's a loser, you shouldn't listen to him. Right. At the end of the day, like, you have to choose to accept that, for yourself. Just because I say it doesn't mean that it's, of course I should say that, in the course of us having a conversation about it or something.
But I have to choose to believe that and go, hey, that has nothing to do with who I am as a person.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything to do with his love of cats.
Yeah. And it's like, also like, don't get, I think, big picture. Yeah, he shouldn't hate on cats. I also think big picture is you shouldn't get disappointed. Like, don't let yourself get disappointed when you run into those kinds of people, because most of the time they're the majority of people. Mostly. And I'm not saying that like, necessarily saying that the whole world's horrible. I'm just saying that the majority of people in the world are not going to connect with you, due to your uniqueness and specialness that, you were talking about earlier in the podcast. Like, there's only so much out there that's going to connect with that. And so many people out there that are going
Mhm.
to connect with that. Um, so, so yeah,
Mhm.
anyway, that's, I don't know. Do you have any further thoughts on like the choice part or response part?
Other than the choice part is a lot easier when you have other things to fill that empty space with. It's almost impossible, I think, to keep that side of your heart, I guess, protected if it's not filled with other things.
How
Again,
did you go
things that
about
make you an interesting person.
how did you go about finding, your things? And like, even like a good example is the dirt biking, because it's not like, that's not really the type of person that you were, as like a little kid or whatever growing up. So like, how did you find the things that, fill that for you?
I think it started when I moved, background, I moved to Virginia for a very brief amount of time and then moved back to Bend. I think it started with me going, okay, I'm only going to be here a year and really want to see things that I haven't seen before as far as being outdoors go. I started hiking a bunch and I didn't have a bunch of new friends. And then as I started to make new friends, hiking and being outside was a really easy way to connect, paddle boarding, kayaking, all that fun stuff. It's a really great and easy way to connect with new friends here. So then I started doing that and go, actually, I really like this. I really enjoy being outdoors. And I'd never been a huge outdoorsy person, but I think that's also because I'd had a lot of friends growing up. They're like, you're just kind of a girly girl. Just kind of wrote me off on that side, honestly. Whether or not it was intentional, I remember always feeling like that, like, oh, I'm just kind of a girly girl. I can't really do that kind of stuff. And then I met one of my good friends now who dirt bikes, and I thought it was so cool that she did it. I liked how passionate she was about it. And it was so far outside of my comfort zone. I think a big part of that was me trying to prove something, honestly, to myself and to other people, going like, hey, no, you can be beautiful and feminine and also be interested in extreme sport like that. And long story, but I have a genetic condition where my knees dislocate super easy. So I'm not able to do things like play volleyball or run or play soccer. I'm not able to. My knees will just pop right out. So I was really excited to find, especially an extreme sport, that I could do and really have a very steep learning curve with, that would be challenging mentally and physically to me. And then also kind of challenge those, I feel like, norms of, because I've always wanted to be both. I wanted to be respected in both areas. So, and that's what I was super interested in. It took a really long time. I'm still scared out of my mind sometimes, some of the places we go. Like, it's still challenging. It's not a cakewalk, but I really enjoy it. And I feel like a big part of my heart and soul is now poured into that sport, which I love. And that may not be everyone's thing. It might be something else, but I tried a bunch of things before I found the ones that I really loved. And also for me, all the ones that I kind of ended up with, like hiking and being outdoors, they're all things that I can do with people. And that also helped me with relationships, because then I found people who were passionate about the same things. So that also helped the social aspect of my life as well. Because I was no longer like, oh, I can't do all these things. I was like, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this or this? We've got options, which helped me connect with people as well.
Do you expect those things to change over time as you near 40? Uh, or, do
It's
you,
like near 40 with my cat.
yeah, when are you going to buy your first cat?
For the record, I don't have any cats. Never wanted a cat. I don't have a cat.
I saw a cute
No,
kitty
I don't
today.
expect they will. It's not worth it. Dogs are so much cuter.
Yeah, but my condo's too small.
Did you get it?
No, no.
Did you
Yeah,
get a
it
cat?
was somebody else's cat,
Okay.
but it was it made me want a little kitty.
Very good. It's not worth
Sorry.
it. But yeah, no,
So
I don't expect they're going to change, especially not dirt biking, unless I get seriously, knock on wood, unless I get seriously injured again, and then I could see it. I don't know. Actually, I don't think my last injury really discouraged me from doing that. So maybe not. Yeah, certainly
well,
not dirt
yeah.
biking, and honestly, certainly not hiking or anything like that.
Yes. Well, your last injury wasn't exactly due to dirt biking. It was due to not
That's
being wearing the appropriate equipment.
it was a freak accident.
Yes. Yes. Um, well, so I mean, the only other thing I was thinking in
Ugh.
terms of that expansion and like taking that forward is I actually think that that's where, at least right now, for what we're doing in terms of reading the books, and it doesn't have to be reading books, like watching shows, like podcasts, like whatever the thing is like we're still. It's not as if now all you're doing is dirt biking and working and paddleboarding, right? It's like, no, you're doing those things, but then you're also still including new aspects of, you know, your experience, like reading books like the ones that we're reading together. Sorry, microphone. Um, like the
Mhm.
ones that we're reading together. And so like that's still influencing that growth trajectory and that maturation trajectory, at least I think. And so I feel like that continues to
Mhm.
build on top of that foundation of maturing and confidence and self-awareness as a result of kind of the continued new input, but then also the quality of that input. I don't know, have you thought about that much?
Mhm. No, I think when you're able to hit it from multiple sides, again, if you're seeing this as a solution to the I am insecure side of you, I think that's incredibly helpful, absolutely. But also do it in a way that works for you and that you're passionate about. I tried for the longest time to do things that I saw other girls doing that added interest to them as a person, but they weren't things I was passionate about. And eventually, like, give it a week, give it 2 weeks, give it 3 months, I always eventually stopped doing it. And I always feel kind of burnt out and kind of just discouraged because there weren't actually things that I was interested in particular. I had to try a lot of different things and fail a lot of times before I found things that kind of started that hamster wheel of, I'm passionate about this.
Yep. Okay. So that leads me to my next question, which I think I have an answer to, but I'm curious what you think first, which is
Okay. No pressure.
is there an element to this process of trying to find other things, pursue other things, where it could be said that you are just trying to kind of cover up how you actually feel, right? And so it's more of a band-aid approach and you're distracting yourself from how you actually feel. You know, what would your response be to that kind of question and or I guess criticism?
It started out for me as a band-aid approach for sure. I came back from Virginia feeling extremely insecure about the way I looked physically. My health was terrible. I was dealing with a lot of health problems that I didn't even talk to anyone about till literally a couple years later. Was a very difficult place mentally, spiritually. I just nothing felt like it measured up anything. So yeah, it did start out as a band-aid approach, but I think to some extent or other, once you continually do that and it becomes not just a habit or obligation, but something that you look forward to, I think eventually it makes that switch. But yeah, I think you do have to do it a little bit as a band-aid approach until your body adapts naturally to that and goes, oh wait, when we do this, we are happier. We do feel more confident. We do feel more fulfilled.
Okay.
What would you say your answer is to that question?
Well, I
Because you
the
said you
way
had an
I
answer
was
to it.
thinking of it is I mean, I love your answer. I think that's a really insightful perspective. But the way that I was also thinking of it was kind of what is the sacrifice? What's better, right? Is it to be comparing yourself constantly, be unhappy with yourself, and be miserable, or is it to try and replace those things with these external, you know, or not external, these additional other options that maybe are at the beginning are about distracting yourself, but then become genuine. But either way, you know, pursuing something, trying and failing, exploring, which I think is innate to human nature, is we want to create, we want to explore, we want to discover, we want to be active, and pursuing those things, even if you have disappointments like, oh, this failed, oh, I got burned out doing that. It's like that journey and that process is still healthier and better than a journey than being on the comparison and I'm miserable journey, which is not really a journey, unless I guess it could be a downward journey. But um, that's kind of like what I was thinking, or at least that's what was circulating in my head. Um, so yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And again, it's like I want
Mhm.
I would hope that the, you know, this conversation and people listening to it are understand that it's coming from, you know, obviously two young people, getting closer to our 40s, um, uh, who are, you know, trying to figure this out for themselves in a lot of ways and want people to feel encouraged and enlightened, as opposed to feeling like the only answer is, you know, being discouraged, being, you know, feeling trapped by this ever, you know, encircling uh whirlpool of, social media and expectations and society this, society that, and, whatever else. And feeling like you can't get out of it. And, I believe that we
Mm,
can get out of it. And I think that has to start with us, because society isn't really necessarily going to change, right? External feelings of,
mhm.
or internal feelings of human nature are not going to change. Like external realities are not really going to change. 250 years ago, thin women felt super, like they were out of place, right? Nobody was painting them. So it's like, so there's always going to be
I like that.
elements.
Nobody was painting them.
Yeah. There were elements of, of every society in which various elements of that society was feeling marginalized or, outcast or whatever. Like that's never going to change. In 250 years from now, it could
Mm,
be something completely different. And, your answer to that
yep.
can't be, oh, I'm miserable. Unless like you want to be miserable. And like, there has to be a better path. Like there has to be. And of course, we believe that. And that's why I brought up the foundation part of it, starting with you, and you brought up the aspect of your uniqueness, right? Because we believe you know, we believe that we're created in the image of God, right? We believe that there is uniqueness there, and that there is something of value that exists outside of any external perspective whatsoever. Of course, external perspective can be helpful and can be
Mhm.
supportive, but you still can't rely on that to find your validation, because you're going to end up being disappointed on some level or another at some point or another. So hopefully people feel, encouraged and like, hey, there's other people out there that are, thinking about this and trying to figure out an answer. And at least to some extent or another, we have found, various degrees of answers. And I think that's part of what being on the journey is all about, is you're discovering the next level of answer as you go on your journey. And so, you're not struggling with the exact same thing. You may not be struggling with the exact same thing today that you were 2-3 years ago when you moved back from Virginia, but you're struggling with a different variation on the theme.
Mhm.
Or, so you, even when you've solved an issue, there's always going to be additional new problems or doubts or concerns that are going to surface.
Yeah, there's always something that's going to come up.
Yeah, like you look at your injury.
Yeah,
Your
there's
injury is
always
a
going to
great
be something
example.
that. Hmm.
uh,
See, that
right.
that's funny. I'm glad you actually bring that up because that brought up a whole another level of insecurities that I had no idea that existed. That also, to a certain extent, had nothing to do with how I looked like physically. Even though this is funny, I was in the hospital. I broke my foot very severely, and they'd given me a lot of pain meds, so I was a little bit out of it. And I forgot about this till later, but I was crying from pain, but also because I was very loopy. And I remember saying to my friend, I'm gonna get fat because I can't work out. And she's like, Karen, that is the least of your worries right now. Like, and I'm not gonna I was like, don't let me eat a bunch of junk food and get fat. She told me about it later. Like, I'm so sorry I put you in that position. I was like, I don't know why that's where my mind went. I really wasn't worried about it. But apparently subconscious was worried about that. So, but no, but didn't. Yay. But I did have to deal with a bunch of other insecurities. Had to do with, okay, I noticed several relationships I had were based on what I could provide, how I could show up physically, things that I could do for them. And I noticed that did make me feel insecure. I didn't realize how much I would miss out on those because I wasn't able to show up physically. I wasn't able to walk for 3 months, just for context. So, yeah, different things will happen, but I don't feel as much anymore. Those were a little bit more tricky, I guess, to fight insecurity wise. But I wouldn't say I struggle with insecurity anymore. I'll definitely have moments of feeling insecure, feeling inadequate, but also at the end of the day, going back to, okay, releasing control. There's so much I can't change, and there's so much I am proud of and I'm happy with, and that is enough. So it doesn't feel as much like us. I don't, by the grace of God, don't feel that anymore of the everyday waking up. Oh, I don't measure up. Now, there's not moments, but it's not an everyday battle anymore like that. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that story. That's a great story, because, yeah. And that goes to my point. It's like we are all on a journey and it doesn't stop. And so, that's why it's important to
Mhm.
keep your head up and understand. Like, I think if you can understand that and appreciate it, then, or I think if you can understand that, then you can appreciate where you're at, because where you're at is so far from where you used to be. And that's the whole point, is you are gaining maturity. You're becoming stronger. Like you walking through, and I even told this to you when you first broke your foot. I was like, I guess it's an opportunity to, discover a whole bunch of new things and, figure out, right. You might not enjoy it, but it happened, and, it happened for a reason, at least I believe, right. Or we believe. And so, what are those reasons? And maybe some of those reasons are so that you could walk through some of the insecurities and relationship understandings that you walked through that now make you stronger as an individual today than you would have been if you hadn't gone through that. So yay. Good job, Cambria.
Mhm. Thank you. So proud. But also one quick note as well. I know we're wrapping up here, but I did have just a thought just also popped into my head, because you said, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but again, speaking from a woman's perspective about other women, I have read a lot about what the Bible says specifically about jealousy and how toxic it is and how destructive it is. And that is something, at least mentally, I would say, have a zero tolerance policy for. The second you feel jealous or insecure because of the way someone else looks, literally call it out in yourself and go, no, absolutely. Not only am I not going to entertain that thought, I'm going to now start repeating positive things to myself about this person. Because that's something, again, you could be the most gorgeous woman in the world, but if you let that will eat apart at you. And I'm saying, like, if you allow the tiniest bit of jealousy in your heart and your mind, if you entertain it for a second, that will corrode everything about who you are as a person, and also will make you miserable more than anything else. And I find something that helps with that is be really active about complimenting, engaging, and being kind to all of the women around you. Look around, go, hey, what's something really beautiful, incredible, physical, or an interest of theirs that I really admire about them, but that they probably don't get complimented on very often. Train yourself to see those things in other people, and specifically in other women, and start encouraging and calling that out in the best sort of way. Because once you start getting into that habit, I found that's been really helpful for me, to where I see a woman, especially one who is so much more beautiful than I am, instead of going like, oh, this makes me less of a person, going, oh, I love this about them. That's so cool. You've got your lane. I've got my lane. I love what you're doing. That's really helpful as well. Because it doesn't matter how interesting, if you allow that for just entertain it for even a second, that's really, really destructive. Don't be jealous. That will ruin everything for you. And yeah, you're just going to be miserable. Yeah. Just miserable.
No,
and nobody wants that.
Good reminder. Yeah, it's like you're gonna struggle one way or the other. You should, or at least we highly recommend, you struggle forward or onward and upward, as opposed to struggling because you're just sliding downward. Mm-hmm. So cool. Well, yes, it's time to wrap up, because I have a work meeting to go to, and I know you've got a life now. So any last words, or where can people find you? Anything along those lines that you want to share?
Yeah, if you want to connect, my Instagram is Cambria_Jacobson. Britain follows me, so if you follow Britain, you can find me there. Love to talk more about this if you have any questions. But yeah, also be encouraged that everyone is feeling the same things. So stop doing what everyone else is doing. It's not working. Find what works for you.
Yes.
Like, really, everyone else is insecure, so maybe stop trying to be like everyone else. It's not working for them.
Yep.
Yeah, which is very cliche, but yeah.
That's cliche for a reason. All right, thank you, everybody. I will catch you again soon, hopefully, and look forward to all the reviews, all the like button smashes, and all the fun stuff like that, so that I know that I'm doing an awesome job and that you like Cambria. All right.
Yeah, guys, I don't want to feel insecure after this. Please listen.
Yes, please. We're staking our emotional health on it. All right. Thanks, everybody.